Snow drifted like pale feathers over Manhattan, softening the city's usual roar into a muted hum. The night lights glowed across the sidewalk puddles, turning the frozen air into a tapestry of glitter and neon. Inside the Silver Lantern, an upscale restaurant in Midtown, a woman sat alone at a table by the window, shifting nervously, her hands folded in her lap. Her name was Dayanne Silva, a 32-year-old Brazilian-American woman who had spent the last several years trying to rebuild her life after a difficult divorce and 2 layoffs that crushed both her finances and her confidence. She was a big woman, curvy, soft, visibly plus size, and tonight, she had taken all her courage to show up for something she hadn't tried in ages. A blind date. She had met the man online. He insisted on not exchanging pictures, saying he preferred a real conversation first. Something about the way he typed felt warm, kind, grounded. For the first time in months, Dayanne felt hopeful. She wore her best burgundy dress, the one that hugged her curves but didn't scream for attention, tied her hair in a soft wave, and even added a touch of gloss to her lips. When a tall man in a tailored navy coat pushed through the restaurant doors, she instinctively straightened. His sharp jawline, groomed beard, and cold, refined expression made heads turn. Women glanced at him with curiosity. Men adjusted their posture. He walked with the confidence of someone who knew he belonged everywhere he entered. Philip Lancaster. Dayanne recognized him from the description he had given: brown hair, tall, wearing a blue coat. Her heart sped up as he approached her table, then stopped as he slowed down, looking at her as if she were an unexpected obstacle. "Are you?" she began, hesitant. He looked at her, eyes scanning her body with a subtle judgment he didn't bother hiding. "Dayanne?" he asked. She nodded with a small, hopeful smile. "Yes. It's nice to finally—" "I think," he interrupted, adjusting his coat as though trying to recompose the night itself, "there must have been a misunderstanding." Her smile faltered. "I don't think so. We matched, we talked, and we agreed to meet here at—" "I didn't expect," he searched for the right words, but not kindly. "This." She swallowed hard. "This. You don't look like someone who—" He paused. "Let's just say we're not compatible. I prefer women who take better care of themselves." The comment cut sharper than a knife. Several diners glanced their way. Dayanne wished she could disappear. Her cheeks flushed hot, her throat tightened. But she tried to hold her dignity. "You could have at least sat down," she whispered. "I don't want to waste either of our time," he replied. "Good night." And Philip walked out, without once looking back. Dayanne remained seated for several minutes, her breath trembling, heart heavy, eyes burning. She didn't cry there. Instead, she gathered her things, stood up with a shaky inhale, and walked out into the cold. Snow hid her tears as she whispered to herself, "Maybe I'm not good enough." What she didn't know, what nobody in New York knew, not even Philip, was that their story was only beginning, and the next time they crossed paths, everything would be reversed. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in people who still step up when the world turns away, take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what you're about to see will restore your faith in humanity. We'd love to know, where are you watching from? Comment below with your country and region, and let us celebrate the kindness that connects us all. Now, let's begin. Philip Lancaster was a man carved by ambition and baptized by privilege. At 38, he had already built an empire of tech-forward real estate investments that transformed commercial spaces into digital integrated hubs for international corporations. His company, Lancaster Dynamics, occupied the top floors of an iconic glass tower overlooking Central Park. He owned penthouses, cars, private memberships, but none of it filled the emptiness he carried silently. Growing up in a family obsessed with appearances, Philip had been taught to value perfection. Perfection in business, perfection in partnerships, and perfection in women. He often repeated, consciously or not, the same phrase his father once drilled into him. People judge you by who stands next to you. Choose carefully. So he chose carefully. Too carefully. Always filtering, always discarding, always searching for the ideal match. Someone perfectly shaped, elegant, socially appropriate. Someone like not Dayanne. To him, the woman at the restaurant had been a mistake. An annoyance. A momentary inconvenience. He had no idea his life was about to twist in ways he could never predict. Several weeks later, Philip sat in a mahogany-walled conference room, surrounded by screens displaying his company's upcoming projects. The mood was tense. Lancaster Dynamics was preparing to bid on one of the most lucrative corporate contracts of the decade, a major international partnership with Orion Global Holdings, a multinational conglomerate known for injecting billions into innovative infrastructure. Winning this contract meant securing their dominance for years. But Orion had a reputation. They did not accept shallow presentations. They demanded substance. Human impact. Real transformation. Everything Philip rarely bothered with. His CEO, Richard, entered with urgency. The board of Orion just announced the head of their new human and urban development initiative. And why should that concern me? Philip asked with mild annoyance. Because she's leading the final phase of evaluations. She's the one you'll be presenting to. Philip waved a hand dismissively. Fine. Who is this woman? Richard hesitated. Her name is Dr. Dayanne Silva. Time froze. Philip looked sharply at him. What did you say? Dr. Silva, Richard repeated. From the New York Institute for Social Infrastructure. She's been working with Orion for months. Their CEO trusts her vision. She designed their entire human-focused model. She's brilliant. And rumor is, her approval is mandatory. A muscle in Philip's jaw tightened. It couldn't be the same woman. Surely not. Do you have a picture? He asked slowly. Richard tapped his tablet and slid it over. On the screen, smiling warmly during a conference speech, was the woman he had rejected. The woman he had humiliated. The woman whose face he barely allowed himself to remember. Dayanne. But now she stood there, confident, eloquent, radiant, like someone who had rebuilt herself piece by piece and risen far beyond anything he had imagined. A professional profile outlined her accomplishments. PhD in Urban Human Dynamics. Former NYC Social Integration Strategist. Award-winning researcher on community accessibility. Lead consultant for Orion Global's international expansions. Philip exhaled sharply. This couldn't be real. Sir? Richard asked, confused by his reaction. Philip straightened. Schedule the meeting. When? Immediately. Because now, more than ever, he understood something he never expected. The woman he rejected now held the power to reject him. Dayanne sat in her spacious office at the Orion Satellite Hub in Chelsea, reviewing proposals submitted by companies from all over the world. Her life in the weeks after that disastrous blind date had taken a surprising turn. A week after the humiliating encounter, she received a call from a former university mentor inviting her to join Orion Global's development initiative. They needed someone who understood the emotional and social needs of communities, someone who could reshape infrastructures to support real lives. Dayanne hesitated at first. Her confidence was still fragile. But slowly, piece by piece, she rebuilt herself. Her job became her safe haven. Her research became her strength. Her voice, once quiet, timid, now resonated in boardrooms around the world. Her appearance changed too, not because she wanted to fit anyone's standard, but because she wanted to feel alive again. She wore bold colors. Stylish blazers. Soft curls falling freely over her shoulders. She embraced her curves, her body, her presence. She had grown. She had healed. But she had not forgotten. When Philip Lancaster entered the glass-walled meeting room where she waited, he froze. She turned, recognizing him immediately. Her jaw clenched, but her expression remained professional. "Good morning, Miss Silva," he said with a practiced corporate smile. "Dr. Silva," she corrected gently, without looking up from her tablet. His stomach nodded. Right, he murmured. Dr. Silva. He sat across from her. The silence weighed heavily. Let's begin, she said. You have 30 minutes. She did not waste a second on personal history. She didn't need to mention the restaurant. She didn't need to remind him of his words. Her tone alone said everything. Philip cleared his throat, beginning the presentation. He tried to keep his composure, but his mind kept flashing back to her expression the night he rejected her, and how different she looked now. Confident. Self-assured. Powerful. Every time she took notes, every time she looked at him with calm neutrality, he felt himself shrinking. When he finished, she tapped her tablet thoughtfully. It's a solid proposal, she said. Relief washed over him. But, she continued, it lacks one thing. His relief shattered. What would that be? He asked. Humanity. Her words struck him like a punch. You talk about structures, profits, projections, but you never once mentioned the people who will inhabit those spaces. Their challenges. Their communities. Philip tried to defend himself, but she lifted a hand. It's not enough to build towers, Mr. Lancaster. You must build futures. Her tone was direct, sharp, but not cruel. She wasn't trying to hurt him. She was simply telling the truth, something he'd rarely heard from anyone. I'll need a revised proposal in 1 week, she concluded. He nodded stiffly. And Mr. Lancaster? She added as he stood. He looked at her. Next time, she said softly, try to show up with genuine intention. She wasn't talking about the proposal. He knew it. She knew it. He walked out feeling the weight of 1,000 echoes. For the first time in his life, Philip Lancaster felt ashamed. The days that followed were a blur of late nights, self-reflection, and a growing awareness of just how hollow Philip's world had become. He reviewed Dayanne's notes, watched her conference speeches, and studied the human-centered model she created. For the first time, he realized how disconnected he had always been, from people, from emotion, from purpose. He started visiting community centers anonymously, talking to small business owners, observing the real impact of urban infrastructure on everyday lives. He began listening, really listening, and as he worked, a quiet admiration for Dayanne grew inside him. Not as a romantic interest. He knew he had no right to think that, but as a human being witnessing the strength of another. A strength he once dismissed without even sitting down. When he returned to Orion 1 week later, Dayanne expected another cold, corporate pitch. What she got was something else entirely. Philip began by sharing the stories of the people he had met. He talked about a small bakery struggling due to poor foot traffic. A community of immigrants living in an area with limited access to public transport. Elderly residents facing mobility challenges. He spoke with sincerity, a sincerity she didn't expect he was capable of. His proposal now centered on creating integrated environments that supported lives, not just profits. When he finished, the room fell silent. Dayanne looked at him with a long, unreadable expression. This, she said slowly, is a real proposal. Relief flooded him. But I need to ask you something, she added. He braced himself. Why the sudden change? He hesitated, the truth on the tip of his tongue. Because I hurt you. Because I judged you. Because I was wrong. But he said instead, because I realized I've been building things that didn't matter. Her eyes softened, almost imperceptibly. This is the version of you your company needs, she said. And the version New York needs. For the first time, she smiled at him. Gently. Respectfully. Not as a woman who once felt humiliated, but as a leader acknowledging growth in another. Philip felt a warmth he hadn't felt in years. Several weeks later, Orion Global officially awarded the contract to Lancaster Dynamics. The announcement made headlines. Lancaster Dynamics wins billion-dollar partnership with Orion Global. Philip tried to thank Dayanne privately after the board meeting, but she always seemed busy, or perhaps avoiding situations that could feel personal. One night, after a charity event celebrating community integration projects, Dayanne stepped outside into the snowy night to call a cab. The street was quiet, illuminated by the amber glow of lampposts. She didn't notice Philip approaching until he said softly, "Dr. Silva." She turned, surprised. "Mr. Lancaster." He offered a small, respectful smile. "I wanted to thank you. Not for the contract. For everything." She hugged her coat tighter, her breath forming small clouds in the air. "You did the work, Philip. You earned it." He swallowed. "I owe you an apology." Her eyes met his. "For what happened at the Silver Lantern," he continued, voice lowering. "I was rude. Judgmental. Cruel even. You didn't deserve that." Dayanne inhaled, the cold air stinging her lungs. "People make mistakes," she said quietly. "But some wounds take time." He nodded, absorbing her words with humility. "I don't expect forgiveness," he replied. "But I want you to know I'm trying to become someone better." She studied him for a moment. This wasn't the arrogant man who walked away without looking back. This was a man who had been forced to face himself, and grew because of it. "You've changed," she said. He smiled softly. "I had a good teacher." She shook her head lightly. "No, you did that work. Not me." Snow fell gently between them, like the city itself was holding its breath. "Would you allow me to make up for it someday?" he asked hesitantly. "Not as a date. Not as a favor. Just as a human trying to repair what he broke." Her expression softened. "Maybe someday," she said. "But not tonight." He nodded, accepting her boundary with grace. A cab pulled up. She opened the door, then looked back at him, really looked at him, for the first time since that night. "Good night, Philip." He bowed his head slightly. "Good night, Dayanne." She entered the cab and it drove away, leaving him standing alone under the falling snow, a man transformed. As the months passed, Dayanne and Philip interacted professionally several times. Their relationship remained grounded in respect, growth, and quiet understanding. She watched him implement community-based solutions with genuine dedication. He listened to her insights with humility. Their dynamic shifted into something healthy, balanced, and rooted in mutual recognition. One afternoon, during an international summit in Geneva, Philip found himself standing beside Dayanne as they prepared to speak at a panel. "Do you still think I'm the man who walked out of that restaurant?" he asked softly. She looked at him for a long moment. "No," she replied. "But I'm not the woman who waited for you at that table anymore either." He smiled. "Good." They stepped on stage together, two people who had crossed paths through pain, grown through reflection, and emerged on the other side stronger. Not lovers. Not enemies. Not unfinished stories. But two souls whose collision reshaped both of them. Months later, an article circulated through New York's business and social communities. "The woman a billionaire once rejected now shapes the city's future." It went viral, not because it exposed him, but because it celebrated her rise, her journey, her resilience, her brilliance. And Philip? He read the article quietly in his office, smiling to himself. He didn't feel shame anymore. He felt gratitude. Because some stories begin with humiliation, only so they can end with transformation. And in the heart of New York, a city built on reinvention, their story became a reminder. Never underestimate the person sitting in front of you. You have no idea who they'll become, or who they already are. Which part of this story touched you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to read them. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, so you won't miss any of our next emotional stories.